そちらに戻る。
Because I'm still waiting for you to click that like button, and to subscribe, and the post notification button.
What happens when a gift or a blessing from the gods themselves, it seems, starts to feel like a curse? Something that results in those who felt they were blessed feeling as though they're trapped and they want to escape. Agents of the Four Seasons is an anime that helps us see that side and allows us to decide what happens in the story to see whether we still perceive this as a gift or a curse. Initially, when I found this anime, I thought it was going to be a romance anime. It seemed as though it was going to be an anime that discussed the seasons, like winter and spring are in love. And I was like, okay, cool. I was wrong. Instead, it's an anime that takes you along a journey that is really heart-wrenching and painful. Because, well, I should probably give you the premise of the anime so you don't get as confused as me. Essentially, what happens is that in this world, there are 4 agents of the seasons: summer, winter, spring, and autumn. Now, these are individuals who one day get a gift, and as such, they have this ability to go to different places and perform. And when they perform, the cycle of the seasons happen. And as such, these are individuals who travel around, basically continuing the cycle. But one day, something happens as spring goes missing, and for parts of the world, they have not experienced spring for more than 10 years. So the question is, what happened? Well, this brings us to where we're at now in terms of the story, because spring eventually returns, and it seems as though a lot of things happen. A while back, an incident happens, and eventually spring is taken as a hostage by insurgents. But it's not as random as what you think it is. It was methodical, because within this world, what actually happens is that people want to utilize the gifts of these individuals. Understandably, if you have a person who can basically control the seasons, there's so many things that you can use and utilize from them, which is what these insurgents do. But what happens is that somehow Spring was able to escape, but the reception that she got when she returned was not as warm as what you would think for a person who had gone missing and shows up. And this is where the anime first unveils the double-sidedness of this story. The thing about these individuals is that, well, the insurgents aren't the only individuals who are using them. The people who they are associated with, or families or clans, use them as well. And understandably, they have a lot of status because they allow these individuals to go to certain areas and allow the seasons to continue. Now, you can think for yourself the multiple reasons as to why this would be so pivotal and why they're so powerful. On a basic level, you can just think about like farming and stuff like that. You need the seasons to shift, but in this situation, it's more darker because essentially what was happening was that people were waiting for the agent of spring to lose her life when she got taken as a hostage, because these individuals have unique abilities, and one of them is that should an agent lose their life, basically another person just shows up and they have the ability, but because they couldn't find the agent of spring, she was alive, and as such they had to wait. This is why there was such a long period for spring to return. They were patiently waiting for her to lose her life because they tried to find her, but kind of realized that it was just too much of a hassle, and it kind of just shows you a dark aspect of what they were. She eventually shows up, and you can see the reception she got. There was a bit of controversy to who she was, but that's revealed later in the story. But what you see with this interaction shows you just how trapped these individuals are. In a situation where she should have been greeted with warmth, that doesn't happen. Instead, she just goes back to a cycle, and as such, that's where we begin in the anime. They're using her all over again. She's going to basically be utilized within the seasons, and that's pretty much it. They don't care for her, and as such this reveals a layer of this anime and the individuals in which these people are just used as assets. Despite the fact that they're viewed as gods and idols to certain people and praised and loved, they're just assets to the people who just basically utilize them. That's all they are, and should something happen or they become problematic, they'll just get someone new. That's how they view things, and as such this really distorts the perception you have of someone who is viewed as a god or an idol, is utilized in a greedy assety way, which allows you to see things in a very dark fashion because it made you wonder why the other agents seem so withdrawn and not as joyful or not as basically what you think a happy god would be. Instead, they seem to almost be businesslike in how they move around. It's kinda because that's how they're seen and that's how they're utilized, and they basically try and bargain their abilities with those who kinda basically own them. And as such, it's taken this beautiful thing and made it into a business in a sense, and it creates this very dark and cold world. And no one shows us more than Spring, a person who was taken, and it seemed like no one cared. But it doesn't necessarily end there, because what happens later onwards within the story is that one of the seasons gets kidnapped again by the same individuals who took Spring. And this now then reveals another aspect of this anime that just makes it so awesome, because in this moment, it seems as though the seasons are going to finally fight back, not against only the insurgents, but the people who basically take ownership of them, as they are led by the very same person who lost her freedom. She's going to be the one who's going to lead them to finally attaining their own level of freedom. And it's Spring, as they take a stand to finally do something, because what happened to Spring, and in a moment where she was left behind by many people and they had just moved on and waited for her to lose her life, it's not gonna happen this time, as for once they actually try to exercise their abilities and do something about it. But what you learn in the anime as you go within it is that it's not only these individuals who are the agents who are really fighting for their own freedom from so many different aspects, it's the people who are the closest to them. Because what this anime likes to reveal within many different stories of these agents is how some of the people who are closest to them, some people that they really love, I don't want to spoil, feel trapped by them. Because what happens is that once someone gets this gift, should someone be assigned to them, you have to basically follow them for the rest of your life and dedicate your life to that person. And you can understand for some people who might not want that, how annoying or just how vexing that would be. And you see this within the story as it later kind of shows you that the effect of gaining this so-called blessing has so many implications on so many people's lives that it ends up feeling really dark. And before you know it, something that was perceived as a blessing feels like a curse, not only for the person who has it, but for those who are around them. And I felt like this anime did such a really beautiful job of just displaying that in so many different aspects that would leave your jaw dropping after every single episode. Because the funny thing about this anime is that almost every single episode almost ended like on a sad note. Which is kind of contradictory to how it looks. And I felt like this anime really took a view on being given a gift, a level that really showed you something that made you wonder, is something like this a gift or a curse, especially once it's given to a human being and their life is forever changed. The darkness seemed to be on both sides. It seems like these individuals who are meant to be this light do not have any place to go to. They just go to the side that works best for them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best place or a good place. And it's because of these aspects that this anime brings that quickly allowed it to elevate more and more in how it challenges how you view and see things in terms of the world and what would actually happen if individuals were given such a gift. The funny thing about their gifts is that it almost isn't too much. It's kind of just simple. It's about the seasons and that's kind of it. It can be utilized to a certain degree, but they're not these godly crazy beings. It seems relatively simple. They just affect the seasons. But to see how the world is basically trying to suck them dry in terms of utilizing them makes you really question, is this something that you want to see in the world? Or if this were to happen, are they better off being hidden? Are they better off actually helping the world? There's so many things. Because especially at the beginning of the anime, because Spring hadn't been around for more than 10 years, there was an individual who had a background story that was really sad and kind of basically was upset with Spring being gone for so long. And you kind of understood it at the beginning of the anime that many people were affected, but given what happened, it's kind of like this double-sided story where it's like they don't know what happened to her, but at the same time I can understand why they'd feel upset because they needed that season for many different things. And it kind of just ends up being this thing where sometimes it's like you have to really think about what's best, because it eventually gets to the point where these people who were once normal people have to act godly and have to put the lives of others ahead of themselves and their ambitions or the people who are closest happens to them, they have to make these sacrifices that make you really question this whole thing that I've been saying. Is this a blessing or is this a curse? Because it feels like a curse more times than not. But when they have these beautiful moments where they assist people, it seems like the most purest blessing you could get because of how simple it is. It's not really there for them, it's there for the world. And when they perform their acts of affecting the season, there's a beauty and an unselfishness about what they do. But you can see that because of this aspect, they're being used by others, and it really affects you in how you view this. And as I was watching this anime, I kind of realized that this was cooking. It was cooking a lot.
I can see what they're doing. I can see it. I feel it. It's cooking.
It started to become an anime that I just couldn't wait to see every single week because it really challenges your brain in terms of just how you view things. And the cool thing about this anime is that it's assisted by beautiful animation. The animation works perfectly for what this anime is trying to do. And you can see that in terms of this anime, this is an anime that had proper backing. They care about this anime. And you can see there's a level of belief in this anime because the animation is probably way better than it should be, but it still shows you that they care in terms of just the presentation. And as such, the animation of it is really awesome. It's fun. It's like a cool anime to watch. But it also gets accompanied by an OST that is amazing. Repetitive sometimes, but the OST is really signature-esque. Once you hear the OST, you'll know. And as such, the sounds and the visuals really accompany the story in such a really good way. They just mesh really well, and it allows this story to be told in the best ability that it can be at this point. I don't know if there's going to be another season or not, but at this point, everything is working good, and it makes this anime one of the most fun but also really surprising anime of this season. I think that if you're a person who's looking for an anime that's really going to make you question a lot of things but show you beauty, have fun moments, and kind of just make you think here and there, this is an anime that surprised not only me, but I think it can surprise you as well and really get you thinking about how you view a gift and a curse and what can come with getting a gift. And I think that this is a conversation that really needs to be pushed because this anime is able to display it in a way that kind of makes you want to talk about it. This is an anime that should be highlighted because this is something worth noting, because it's something that could be easily overlooked by someone who's not really willing to give it a chance, and you might be missing out on an anime that's going to surprise you and get you thinking. And as an anime fan, that's something you want sometimes.